attention to these other paths. Because we may say, oh, Krishna consciousness is the best. So why is it the best? What makes it the superior? We have to understand it in terms of Gyan and Vairagya, knowledge and detachment. We give the example, just like there's different currencies. There is dollars, there is krona, there is rupees, there's so many different, there's rubles, right? There's so many different currencies. Now you cannot say 100 rupees is equal to $100. It would be very nice, but it's not like that, right? And 100 rupees is not equal to $100. There's a big difference, right? So, why? What makes the difference? The gold reserves. Each country has some reserves of gold, and according to the gold reserves, it influences the value of the currency. At least that's how it's supposed to be. This is how the world exchange is based on this principle. The gold reserves, how much gold each country has, will determine the value of their currency. So in the same way, in the path of self-realization, in the practice of yoga, there is also some gold reserves. And that is the Gyan and the Vairagya, in terms of the knowledge and the detachment. Knowledge of the difference between matter and spirit and the controller of both. And detachment from all material things which have no connection with spiritual values. This is the gold reserves in the spiritual path. Gyan and Vairagya. And we see in the Krishna consciousness movement, there's a lot there in the gold reserve. If we are practicing the process, the Gyan is very great there in Srimad Bhagavatam, books like the Srimad Bhagavatam. It is the ripened Purana, it's the fruit of all the Vedic literature. Nigama Kalpa Taror Galitam Palam Shukamukadamrita Travasamya. That is the ripened fruit of the Vedas. The Vedas are like a tree, and the fruit of the Vedas, that is the Srimad Bhagavatam. It's the fruit which is more important than the tree. Right? You have a tree with no fruit, but when the mangoes are on the tree, then the tree is very important, right? We take care of that tree. So the same way, the Vedas are like a tree, and the fruit of that tree, that is the Srimad Bhagavatam, the ripened fruit. And it's all relishable and easily digestible, because it emanated from the mouth of Sri Shukadeva Goswami. So this is something of the knowledge which is there in the Krishna consciousness process. And the detachment is also there in the sense that we dedicate everything for the pleasure of Lord Krishna, utilizing everything for Krishna's pleasure. As Srila Prabhupada taught us to do these things in the beginning of our Krishna consciousness movement, everything we got, we would offer to the deities. We got some new cloth, we have to put it on the altar and offer it to the deities. Whatever we had, it was always offered to the deity. And every day going into the temple, we'd keep some rice outside the door and bring some grains of rice in to offer to the deities every day. Prabhupada wanted us to develop this mood of offering everything for Krishna. And this is how we developed the Krishna consciousness movement. We gave up everything for Krishna's service. There's a nice example about Giri Raj. I was speaking about Giri Raj, and he was a nice young devotee. He joined as a young man. He just finished his college. He was the son of a lawyer. His father had a big legal firm in Chicago. And his father naturally wanted his son to come in the business. His son had gone to a good university and he graduated, and his father expected his son to come into the business and be in the legal practice. But Giriraj met the devotees and he joined the Krishna consciousness movement. Not only did he join the Krishna consciousness movement, but at some point Srila Prabhupada said, I want to go to India now. I'm going to take some devotees with me and we will begin World Sankirtan Party. So Srila Prabhupada also invited Giriraj that you can also come. You can be part. So naturally Giriraj said yes. And he'd become a devotee in Boston, but he left the Boston temple and he came with the devotees. They went to India and they traveled with Srila Prabhupada in India. So Giriraj's father was upset. He wanted his son to be in the business. So his father came all the way to India and he came to see Srila Prabhupada. And he said, okay, Swamiji, how much do I have to give you to get my son back? He got out his checkbook. He said, just tell me how much you want. So Prabhupada looked at him and smiled. And then he said, call Giriraj in here. And they brought Giriraj in. And then Prabhupada explained to Giriraj, he said, your father wants you to go back home with him to America. And his father was saying, yes, I need you for the business. You know, you're my only son. I want you to come in the business. You're supposed to we have a good business there. We're doing well. You should come and help. I want you to come back with me. But Giriraj said to Prabhupada, no, Prabhupada, I will not go. And Prabhupada said, why not? He said, oh, Prabhupada, he said, you don't know what it's like. My mother and father, they're always arguing and fighting with each other. And my sister, she's always running around with so many different men and goes to parties and gets drunk and things. He says, I don't want to go back to that life. And Prabhupada looked at his father and said, what can I do? He doesn't want to go. So this is the kind of detachment, you see, that his father was saying, I'm going to give you $1 million, you know. But he said, I don't want the money. He said, I'm happy here. I'm happy and with the devotees, helping to establish Krishna consciousness in India. And we were living very simply, but he was happy, he was satisfied. That is the kind of detachment which comes about by the practice of devotional service. That even you're offered so much luxury and so many things to tempt you, but to the devotee, there's no interest. He doesn't care, doesn't want it. And we see this example in many other different ways. Of course, the example was the Haridas Thakur. He was the great chanter of the holy name. And so some man was envious of him, and he arranged, he bribed this one young woman. He said, I want you to go and seduce this Haridas Thakur, have a relationship with him. And then we can have him thrown out, we can have him disgraced. And so the young woman took on that task, and she went there to try to allure Haridas Thakur into having a relationship with her. And at this time, Haridas was a young man. And this young woman, an attractive young woman came, and she was trying to allure Haridas Thakur. But Haridas Thakur was not interested. He just kept chanting. And he let her stay and hear the chanting. And she came for 2 days, and the 3rd day she was ready to become a devotee. She gave up everything. He told her, go home, give away everything, and come back. And she went to her home, she gave away everything, and she came back, and Haridas told, now you stay here where I've been sitting, you stay here, you sit and chant. And she took over in Haridas Thakur's place. Haridas then left, went some other place. So that's the kind of detachment which comes about by practice of devotional service. But we have to have that determination. We have to be very fixed that I don't want anything else. I simply want to be Krishna conscious. I don't want any other thing. We have to be very convinced about that. So Krishna will test us, and it is expected that there will be tests. In fact, Maya has that task, that her job is to test people. If you go to Mayapur, there's a place in Mayapur where Samantini Devi appears. Samantini Devi is a form of Maya, you see? And she was lamenting. She said, you know, I never get to see the pastimes of the Lord. My only business is to try to deviate people from devotional service, to lure them away. I tempt them. You know, some people want to make a lot of money. When they get the opportunity for money, they'll let everything go. Oh, forget that chanting, doesn't matter, the business first. You know, they want the money and some other things. The big temptations are always there. It's very easy to be tempted and to forget Krishna consciousness. We say, oh, in the future I'll be Krishna conscious. In the future, let me make the money now while I have the opportunity, right? So we're thinking like that. Maya tests us this way. So many temptations come. So Samantini Devi, she was lamenting that I don't get to see the pastimes of the Lord, that my job is only to tempt people, to take them away from devotional service. But the Lord came and appeared to her and said, no, she said, actually, you're there in the spiritual world as Purnamasi. And in the spiritual world as Purnamasi, you're making all arrangements for my pastimes. So here in this world, you're doing some service for me, but don't worry, chant the holy name and you can be protected. And Simanti, she took the dust from Lord Chaitanya's lotus feet and put it on the parting in her hair. So that parting is called the Simanti. You see, so Simantini, she got this name Simantini Devi. So if you go to Mayapur, you can see there's one temple there at Rajpur of Jagannath, and there's also the temple of Simantini and Lord Chaitanya. The nice pastime. How some Simantini is worshipping Lord Chaitanya and chanting the name of Gauranga. So we're all trying to develop our Krishna consciousness. We want to be Krishna conscious. We have to be determined. We have to really want it. Srila Prabhupada would say, devotional service means stop doing your business. When we do business, we give the goods, we want something back, right? You have to get paid. And giving the goods, we want to get paid for everything. But Krishna consciousness is just giving without any expectation of anything in return. We simply want service. Lord Chaitanya prays, Nadanam, Najanam, Nasundarim, Kavitam va Jagadisha Kamaye, Mama Janmani Janmanishware, Bhavatad Bhakti. I don't want wealth, I don't want followers, I don't want fame, I simply want devotional service, birth after birth. So the devotee doesn't even aspire for liberation. We're so happy just to be engaged in devotional service. devotional service is higher than liberation. Liberation is insignificant compared to the pleasure of devotional service. This is described, if you read Prabhupada's Nectar of Devotion, or Rupa Goswami's Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, describes very clearly how there's different levels of happiness. There's the happiness of the material world, there's the happiness of liberation, and then there's the happiness of pure devotional service. The happiness of pure devotional service is like an ocean. The happiness of liberation is like a drop of water, insignificant compared to the happiness of devotional service. So we should endeavor, we want to taste that nectar, the pleasure of pure devotion. In order to develop that pure devotion, we have to give up material desires. Anyabilasita sunyam jnana karma janavritam anukuyena krishnanu shilanam bhaktir udamam. Devotional service means no desire for fruitive activities and no philosophical speculation. So a devotee is not interested in either karma or jnana. Karmi wants to enjoy the material world and the jnani wants the liberation. But the devotee, he doesn't want either of these things. He simply wants devotional service. And that was Prabhupada's mood. Prabhupada had that mood. Service. He was constantly traveling, preaching, writing at the same time, running the society, running the Krishna consciousness movement, organizing it all, getting properties, giving instructions to devotees, how to organize, how to manage. This was Prabhupada, so busy in the service of Krishna. So that is Krishna consciousness, full engagement in the service of Krishna. Without any salary, without any payment, without any desire to get anything. Just simply, we want only service, to do service for Krishna. So today is Guru Purnima. We're remembering Srila Prabhupada's great efforts in establishing Krishna consciousness. We want to honor him. So, are there any questions?
A question here.
Yes?
Maharaj, on one hand, yes,
Can you
that's
speak louder, please?
On one hand, yes, so the devotee doesn't want karma or jnana, but at the same time, most of us here, have job, career, and how should we kind of deal with that? Should one give up on the career and just surrender and go into the temple?
Oh yeah, you have a job, yeah, you have a career, that's all right. But, at the same time, the attachment should be there for Krishna. That I'm doing the job as service to Krishna. I have my career, I'm doing it for Krishna. Ultimately, it's for Krishna's pleasure that we're working. And Srila Prabhupada writes in one purport there, in the 16th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, he said we have many devotees. Some are working in factories and some are working in offices, but they're working for the pleasure of Krishna. He said these devotees are actually in the renounced order of life because they're donating also, they're contributing to the Krishna consciousness movement. They're not just working only for their own sense gratification and to have a comfortable home, but they're working to help the Krishna consciousness movement, to expand the Krishna consciousness movement.
Thank you, Maharaj. And just leading question in that context. In that sense, some devotees, when they kind of work, for example, so they have this attitude to their work as, okay, so maybe I will do at least some, I will not put so much effort into my job just to barely earn some money to support my body, because my ultimate goal is to transcend this world, go back home, back to Godhead. And that's why my attitude to the work may be a bit careless. Is that right for devotees to have that attitude?
Yes, well, it's definitely not wrong. if you can have that attitude, just be sure that not everybody knows about it. You know, the people you're working with, you shouldn't display that attitude to your workmates. That will not help you. But rather, in the front, in the presence of your workmates, you want to say, yes, we're going to work, I'm going to work. But in your heart, you should be thinking something else. You see? How we actually perform what you actually say in the presence of your workmates who are non-devotees, you don't want to let them have any doubts about you, but you should, say, yeah, we have to work, we have to push on, we want to increase the profits, we want to have a good result, good performance. But in our heart, we should think the good performance is to take shelter at the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. So, what you actually say externally and what you actually feel in your heart will be a little different. But just be careful that you don't expose yourself to everyone.
Yeah, because when you think something, then it might manifest in your behavior, how you actually perform.
Well, you have to be careful about that. Yeah.
Переведешь? I'll try.
Можете, пожалуйста, рассказать про
Could you please tell
какие-то истории, связанные с Шрилой Прабхупадой?
Some stories connected to, related to Srila Prabhupada.
И какие наставления вам давал Шрила Прабхупада?
And what instructions you were given by Srila Prabhupada?
И как вы чувствуете его сейчас, сегодня?
And how do you feel his presence today in your life and in general?
Well, how do we feel Prabhupada's presence today? He's here. Right? He's here with us. We feel his presence every day. We do Guru Puja in the temples every day. We feel his presence. We read his books. We feel his presence. We hear his classes. We can feel his presence. Srila Prabhupada said to me, he said, you wasted many lifetimes in sense gratification, now give this one life to Krishna.
Hare Krishna, I have one question. A conflict arises because every person has their different opinion in the house. And one has different opinion, I have different opinions. So how to get rid of these things? Can you please tell me, sir?
Well, we have to respect others' opinions. Everyone's an individual. They're entitled to their own opinions. Doesn't have to make a big issue about it. You can't expect to have everybody have the same opinion. So we have to accept, somebody else has a different opinion, all right, that's their opinion. But, we should have our own opinion. We're entitled to have our own opinion. Not that you have to adjust everything just to fit in with everybody else. Different people, different strokes for different folks. So you have to expect there's going to be differences. It's not that it's all one. That's not possible. Rather, there's a sense of oneness that we're all spiritual beings, we're all souls, but we're all individuals also. So everyone has their own different ways, different ideas, different goals, what they want. All right.
Thank you.
We have to be tolerant about these things. Even some devotee wrote to Prabhupada about this and said, is this because we're all impersonalists, that there's so many differences in arguing? And Prabhupada said, no, he said it's because we're all persons, not impersonal, but because we're all persons, and that's why there is differences. We're individuals, and you have to accept that. It's going to be there. And so in our Krishna consciousness movement also, we get different devotees. They have different ideas about how to do things. Okay. Yes?
Как и насколько сильно связаны проповедь и повторение джапы?
How much and to what extent is related our preaching and chanting of japa?
Well, chanting of japa, that's our main sadhana, our main focus in sadhana bhakti is chanting the japa. That you're not going to be able to do any effective preaching without chanting japa. If you don't chant japa yourself, you cannot expect to have much potency in preaching. So chanting the holy name is first. The scriptures say, first become perfect yourself, and then try to make others perfect. Bharata bhumite haila manusya janmajara. Janma sartaka karikara paraupakar. First you become perfect, and then you preach to others. Try to if we're not chanting, then how can we tell other people to chant? It's important. You have to practice what we preach. Teacher says don't smoke, but the teacher smokes. Oh, that's a problem. What kind of teaching is that? The teacher's not showing the example. So teach by example. We have to chant. Then we can preach to other people and encourage other people to also chant. If we're not Krishna conscious ourselves, it's difficult for us to impress on others the importance of being Krishna conscious. So chanting is very basic principle in Krishna consciousness. And that's why at the time of initiation, we make a vow to chant a fixed number of rounds, minimum 16 rounds. We don't say, oh, you have to join the kirtan every day, or you have to read the book every day, but we do say you have to chant minimum 16 rounds every day. That's required. It's a basic principle. And Prabhupada was very strict on this principle. Even if there were some very good people, very qualified people in the material sense, if they would come for initiation, but if they were not chanting 16 rounds, Prabhupada would not accept them. He would not give them initiation. He said, first you chant 16 rounds, then you come. So it's very important. Yes? Any other questions? Yes, Maharaji?
When we are going through these tests, it seems that actually we are going through tests all the time. Is it like smaller or bigger tests that Krishna is testing, Maya is testing us? Shall one pray to Lord Narasimha for protection, that he will give us strength? Is it required?
Well, if you can pray to Krishna also, you can pray to Lord Narasimha. Certainly, Srila Prabhupada told us when he was not well that we could pray to Lord Narasimha. And sometimes when the movement is being threatened with some big obstacles, some big problems, some big tests are coming, you can worship Lord Narasimha, can help you, can give you strength. So, not wrong in that. But you can also worship Lord Krishna. He can also help you to overcome the obstacles. Obstacles in the path of devotion, they can all be removed by Lord Krishna. You may like, but some people also have faith in Lord Nrsingadev. And so certainly Lord Nrsingadev is famous for giving protection to devotees. So if we're in some danger, we feel some threat like that, we can pray to Lord Nrsingadev. It's very popular to worship Lord Nrsingadev in that kind of situation. Lord Nrsingadev can give us some shelter. But you can also just simply worship Lord Krishna. Somebody may be devoted to Lord Rama. It's a question of where your faith is. If you have that faith in Lord Nrsingadev, certainly you can do it.
Какой для вас Шрила Прабхупада? Можете поделиться, как вы его видите, чувствуете? Потому что, к сожалению, время идет, и многие уходят в вайшнавы, которые видели Прабхупаду. И могли бы вы поделиться, какой он для вас, как вы его видите, чувствуете, воспринимаете?
How do you perceive Prabhupada yourself? Because now we observe that many Prabhupada disciples, senior devotees, leave this world, and still we require this experience from you, how you basically perceive Srila Prabhupada person as a personality.
Well, you know, you can also understand Srila Prabhupada just by reading the different books which the devotees have written about Srila Prabhupada. There's many senior devotees, they've written their books about their realization of Prabhupada or their association with Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada, you know, he didn't associate with everybody. You know, for example, when I joined the Krishna consciousness movement, it wasn't like Prabhupada interviewed us before we got initiation. You know, we would just all come and he'd have a piece of paper with our names on, written by the temple president. He'd call out the name, who's this? You know, and the devotee would come forward, and then he'd ask us what are the four principles, and how many rounds you're going to chant. All right, here's your beads, your name is, you know, just like that. He didn't really know us, but he would accept us on the basis of the recommendation from his temple president. Prabhupada, you know, we were so young, and Prabhupada was so much senior, and we didn't know anything, and Prabhupada knew everything. So we had complete faith in Prabhupada, that, you know, that he is the guru and he knows everything, and we're surrendering to him. We're very thankful to have that shelter, and we wanted to just hear everything from Prabhupada. So we spent a lot of time just hearing Prabhupada, and sometimes we could ask some question to Prabhupada, sometimes, you know, but usually we didn't like to trouble Prabhupada too much. And we were also encouraged, you know, devotees would say, don't write to Prabhupada, Prabhupada's busy, he's writing his books, you know. So, you know, we didn't really get encouraged to start writing letters to Prabhupada. But Prabhupada encouraged us to talk to Krishna. When I joined the movement, you know, we had Radha Vandaneshwara, and every Sunday we used to sit in front of the deities and give a report to the deities. So Prabhupada had us do this. He wanted us to give a report to the deities, what service we've done and what we're going to do in the next week. And this way So Prabhupada was encouraging us to develop our relationship with Krishna. You see? So that, yeah.
Our last question. Hare Krishna. How we may accept any situation as it is without losing our peace?
Without losing our
peace, yes.
Yes. Well, the peace formula is there. Right? If you remember the peace formula, then you'll be peaceful in any situation. The peace formula is to remember that Lord Krishna is the supreme proprietor, that he is the supreme enjoyer, and he is our best friend. You see? It's the final verse of the 5th chapter, 529 in the Bhagavad Gita. So if we remember those 3 things, then we can remain peaceful. We become disturbed because we're thinking, oh, this is mine, or I've lost this, or so I didn't get it, because we're in the bodily concept, because of our bodily consciousness, we feel disturbed. But if we are conscious of ourselves as a spirit soul, servant of Krishna, then we'll be peaceful in every situation. The disturbance comes because of attachment, material attachment, identification with the body. That's the cause of our disturbance. You want to get free of disturbance, we have to become attached to Krishna. And we have to come out of the bodily consciousness. And remember, we're not the body. We're spiritual beings. We're souls living in the material body. And so if we can remember these things, then we won't be disturbed. Yes, Maharaja?
Thank you so much for the class, Maharaj. On this day of Guru Purnima, can you give one message so that we can take away with us?
You want one message? Well, my message is that you should try to take shelter of Srila Prabhupada through his teachings, read his books, and try to practice what Srila Prabhupada is telling us. Srila Prabhupada is encouraging all of us to become Krishna conscious. And it's important for us to chant the holy name of Lord Krishna. So try to make a program like that, following the instructions of the Guru. If we respect the Guru, Guru is the one who gives knowledge, who takes away the darkness of ignorance, right? We say, Om Ajnana Timirandasya. He opened my eyes, which were blinded by ignorance. So that is the Guru. He's giving us light to see the truth. So try to understand the truth, that we're spiritual beings living in a material body. And it's very important for us to chant the Mahamantra. In the Kali Yuga, in this age, self-realization is achieved by chanting of the holy name. So make a regular program to chant the Hare Krishna mantra and to read Prabhupada's books. That will be very good for you. So on this day of Guru Purnima, we encourage all of you, read Prabhupada's books, chant the Hare Krishna mantra. Mahaprabhu asked Haridas and Lord Nityananda to go door to door and to tell people, Bolo Krishna, Bhajo Krishna, Koro Krishna Shiksha. Right? Worship Krishna, chant the names of Krishna, and read the books about Krishna. So if you do these things, then your life will be worthwhile. Yes, Maharaji?
So, like, you mentioned it was a little more easy to like meet Prabhupada or meet Guru before, or so how, like these days when Kali Yoga and we have our pressure in work and devotees are getting more and more devotees, so it feels like it's not easy to meet a Guru. Like how much effort, like here in Sweden, it's not so easy. How much effort should you do to have some deeper guidance? Because like, should you travel to India, what should you do to have deeper guidance from a person in life? Except Krishna and except Prabhupada.
Well, you have to be willing to hear. Certainly, there are many spiritual teachers. Of course, you want to be faithful to Srila Prabhupada, and you want to hear from those who are representing Srila Prabhupada. So within our Krishna consciousness movement, there are many spiritual teachers. There are, actually, we can see many senior devotees. They're all spiritual teachers, and they can all give you valuable guidance and association. Srila Prabhupada was asked that apart from him, are there any other pure devotees? And Prabhupada said, well, how many members do we have in our society? And then he said, well, there are at least that many pure devotees. He considered all the members of Krishna consciousness movement to be pure devotees. If they're following 4 principles and chanting every day, that is pure devotion. And of course, there's different degrees of pure devotees. There's Kanista, there's Madhyama, there's Uttama. There's different levels, but they can all be pure devotees. And they can all give us guidance, they can all give us knowledge and help us. But we have to approach them. They may not come to you, you have to go to them. You have to be willing to inquire from them. You have to search them out. And by hearing, you can, if you hear from them, then you can understand. So it's not that you have to go to India, and there's many spiritual teachers also coming to Sweden. They do come to Sweden. You have temple centers here, and many senior devotees, they're also coming and visiting here. So you have an opportunity to hear and to associate with them. And you can make contact with them, you can by communication, you can write, you can use the internet, in different ways you can communicate with them. And if you have questions, they'll be willing to help you, to answer your inquiries. But you have to go to them. You have to. They're not going to come to you and say, I'm the guru, you can, that wouldn't be very good, right? If somebody comes, hey, I'm the guru, you want to, that's not how you find the guru, So it's good you're thinking like that. So keep that desire. Krishna knows your desire. Krishna will fulfill you. He will send somebody to help you, to direct you. Man proposes, God disposes. So when you're really serious and qualified to find a spiritual teacher, Krishna will send one. Hare Krishna. Okay. So thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Ki Jai. Bhakti Vrinda Ki Jai.